You're listening to High Frequency Healing on the Superpower Up podcast, the show that explores the awakening of superpowers through higher dimensional healing.
Hello, everybody. I cannot explain to you how happy and excited I am. So let's take a deep breath and be here and now. I invite you to enjoy this time together. So here we go. Hello. I am AngelaMaría, one of the Superpower Up hosts, and you are here listening to High Frequency Healing Show. The only difference between where you are to where you want to be is the actions you take here and now to heal your life. I am so honored to have this remarkable woman, caring mother and wife, and successful entrepreneur that has helped so many people. Here are just a few things she does. Her number one endeavor is to convince people superpowers are real and to recruit other powerful mutants. I honor that she is a lifelong student of energy manipulation, transmutation, clair senses, intentional molecular creation, among others. It is inspiring. She believes everyone has the power to create a multidimensional existence and master the human experience. I personally had the blessing of working with Tonya one-on-one and felt her powerful healing energy and words. Please join me to welcome Tonya Dawn Recla.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited for this show. Very, very, very well done. And I'm so excited that you, my love, are the host of it. So thank you for honoring the Superpower Up podcast and the Superpower Experts business with your voice and your wisdom.
Thank you so much. Today we are talking about high frequency healing. And I am excited to discuss this topic because this is the empowerment era where we are called to lead our own healing experience. So Tonya, what's your healing superpower?
You know, I love this question. Obviously I love the superpower question in general, but the healing question I think is such a challenging one for so many of us. So, you know, I coming out of the counterintelligence arena and moving into business and everything else, the idea of me as a healer was not natural. I guess I should say it was completely natural, but it just wasn't normalized for me. And even like saying those words were very, very challenging for me during an aspect of my journey. And I had to really work around to the idea that we're all healers, you know, whether it's healing aspects within ourselves or assisting others. I just didn't see it that way. I think I had so many connotations about like laying on of hands or Reiki or all these other modalities that I don't do. It took me a long time to see the healing nature in the work that I did. And so for me, it's kind of a roundabout healing because I hold people accountable to their highest frequency. And in that frequency, we are whole. So it's not setting about in order to heal. It's simply a byproduct, if you will, of that work.
Yes, and I love what you said about being one in that frequency. Tonya, will you please take us back to your early years and name one memorable life lesson that is useful for you today?
Beautiful. Of course, with all of us, there's so many. A really pivotal moment, though, and I was just reminded of this here recently. I think a number of us had similar experiences. Was in college. I was a freshman in college, and I remember I had never thought that I had abilities or anything unusual. I really assumed everybody went through the world in the exact same way that I did. I knew that I was smart. That was kind of my thing, is like when people ask if I've always known, it's like I always knew I was smart, but that's what they called it, right? It was gifted education, honors college, like all this stuff. So there was an intelligence that had been identified, but anything gifted wise or intuitive or superpowers, it just wasn't it never came to my, it never dawned on me to think about. And it wasn't until my freshman year of college that I had a guy pull me aside and say, we were friends with kind of his group of friends. And he just flat out told me, he's like, nobody wants to know that you can see them. And it just, I remember it catching me really off guard and being like, what are you talking about? And he's like, nobody wants to know that. And it bothers people. And so if you're going to hang out with us, you need to not do that around us. And I was like, huh? Like it was the first time that I'd had that brought up to my attention. And in the same breath, it was also very, disregarding, right? It's like, you can hang out with us, but you just can't be yourself type of thing. And I remember I stayed up that entire night, just awake, wondering what I was going to do. And in that moment, I made the choice to turn it off. I don't know that I was able to turn it off completely, but I certainly made the choice not to show it. And I started being a lot more conscious of what it was, and that it was somehow different. That was the first time I had been labeled different. And that was, I look back on that, and that was a pretty significant moment where I allowed somebody else's fear to dictate me showing up fully. And so I learned a lot of lessons along that trajectory until I awakened into that space again.
I just loved what you said, Tonya, because I think fear is exactly what holds us back in all of this empowerment about using our healing powers. And the fear of being seen and the fear of being judged is what have, I would say, most of these humans in this third dimension just constrained and in deep pain, lack, and being just feeling lost because we have shut those powers. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's really powerful, and I hope people that are listening just get the message. Fear is holding you back. Fear is hiding your powers.
Absolutely. And I want to jump in because that's a big part of the reason why I'm so excited about this show and about you specifically hosting it, is because you have this innate ability to sense that in people. And it's such a gift to be able to identify that for others, because a lot of times it is hard to see for ourselves. And in gentleness and love and support, had someone come to me and said, hey, do you know what you're doing? Do you have an idea of what this is? And let me help you understand it better. Like, let me help you hone that. Let me help you be in choice around it. And I think that that's such a beautiful gift that you offer to your clients and to the world. And I'm so excited because we get to bring that forward now in a really transparent and authentic and loving way. And so thank you for, kind of picking up that mantle and being willing to step into your own courage and share that information, because there's so many people who are sitting exactly where I was as that scared freshman, not knowing what to do with all of this.
Yes. And that's where the empowerment begins, when we really know ourselves and we really know that we have the power that we need to uncover and just go for it and do it and be who you need to be in this existence. So yeah, again, thank you. I'm so honored. I'm happy just to share this with you. So Tonya, this is what happened. You were a freshman, like a really normal person in this world. What did you study to be?
Well, I was very confused. So I don't fit well in boxes, shockingly. And so I went in undeclared, so I didn't really choose a major or anything. And I eventually settled into psychology. And the only reason I did that was because I was applying for scholarships and I had to choose a major in order to be eligible. So I chose psychology because I love the idea of diving around in people's psyches. But the professors and I didn't really see eye to eye because they kept wanting me to look at things through the psychological lens, right? So my papers, everything, they're like, you're representing different perspectives. I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I do. Like, it's, let's look beyond, let's not just look at it through this one filter. And so I eventually settled into an interdisciplinary degree around intercultural communication. And it allowed me to take issues or topics and look at them from a variety of perspectives. And that's really where I excel. And then I continued into a master's degree program doing the same thing. And I studied things like, white privilege and how to teach issues of race to white people, and how intergroup relations work, and how to train individuals in social identity theory and that type of stuff. And I took every single class with the word sex in the title that the college offered. So, and I went to ASU, so you can imagine there were a lot of classes on sex at Arizona State.
That's funny.
So that was it. That's where it all began.
This is just so exciting. And I think that I would like people to know how to find you, how to find more about you, Tonya.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they can go to superpowerexperts.com. And if you're intrigued by the superpower conversation, on our homepage, we have a quiz. It's a fun little quiz. You can go and discover one of your predisposed superpowers. But you can find me there, all over social media. I'm the only Tonya Dawn Recla running around.
Yeah, and I really invite you to take that quiz. That quiz changed my perspective of who I was and what I was doing in this world. So we've been talking with Tonya Dawn Recla about high frequency healing. When we come back from this short break, we're going to talk more about her healing superpowers. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
We're back, and you are listening to High Frequency Healing, the show that explores the awakening of superpowers through higher dimensional healing. And today we are talking with Tonya Dawn Recla about high frequency healing. Tonya was telling us before the break a little bit about her profession and what did she do in those early years. So Tonya, was there a burning bush moment that made your heart desire changing this career?
I love the burning bush analogy. I find that as I continue further and further along my own trajectory, that the mystical, biblical, religious, spiritual, all of the references kind of come together. And so I love that you're reinvigorating the burning bush concept. I feel like there were many, it's like, I feel like on one side of the burning bush, it's like, it's a huge, like, forest fire. And then you kind of walk through it, and then it's like, oh, it's a little bitty match. It's like, there were so many that, looking back, I kind of chuckled to myself, because it was like, I don't know that was that big of a deal, but I remember it feeling like a really big deal in the moment. And the biggest one was walking away from the counterintelligence arena. It's just not done. There's an old saying that the old spies never die, they just fade away. And it's the idea that that career is for a lot of people is kind of a lifetime career. And I had gone from the military into government and being an agent. And when I made the choice to leave, I didn't really know why or what I was going to do. I just knew it was time. And for whatever reason, I have an innate ability to follow my own guidance. Mm-hmm. And it was just time. And I remember I was 1 month away from making what is the equivalent of tenure for the government, from having like all of my investments, vested. I mean, it was like all I had to do was wait 30 more days. And I had kind of crossed a threshold that they couldn't take away. If I wanted to come back, I could start at that point. And I didn't care. I'm done. Like, I knew it was time, and I was like, I'm just done. And it was, all of the logic and rationalizations and everything else that people would try to throw at me just made me more determined just to follow my own guidance and leave. And I did. And I went and explored entrepreneurship, wrote my book. My book, I think it flowed out of me in the course of 2 days. I wrote about being a female agent. I wrote about being raped by one of my team members on a surveillance mission. And it was so cathartic. Like, I didn't feel like I was writing it. I just felt like it was flowing out of me. It felt very guided. I wouldn't have used those words at the time, like channeled or guided or anything. In fact, I would have probably run screaming from those words at that time, but it was very therapeutic. It felt, like a necessary thing to do. And then went about training people and women's empowerment and stuff like that. More of the personal power arena, if you will. And so that was a very pivotal moment. And then, of course, making the decision to go back into government, not really, again, understanding why, but having an innate sense that I was going to meet my husband. And I knew the second I met him that I knew who he was. I knew we had agreements. I knew we had done this many times before. I just knew, like, it was all very guided. And it was, I felt like I was on autopilot. And so there were just a series of events during a short time frame that really made all of the difference. And actually, now that I'm reflecting on it, the decision to leave Counter Intel was preceded by a very specific decision where they had come to me and asked me if I wanted to be involved in some very specific things for the government. I'm trying to be careful thinking what I can actually say. But they were asking of me to basically dedicate my existence into that arena. And I knew that if I did that I was giving up any personal identity, any family. I was single at the time. I was giving up any idea of a marriage or a family or anything else, because that's what that kind of service required. And I sat with that decision for about 2 weeks, and it was tough, because on one hand it was like a lifetime opportunity, right? It was like no one even knows how to find those kinds of opportunities, and here I was being handed one. And at the same time, my heart was leading me in a different direction. And that was tough. I remember those 2 weeks and making that decision to pursue something different was really challenging for me. But that, like, I see now how it kind of, like, the pathway just kind of like unfolded from that place. And that happened prior to me leaving and prior to me meeting Justin and everything that transpired, and of course the birth of Neva. And so I think that was a very, very pivotal. It's almost like the devil kind of dangling, right? And not that it was evil, it wasn't evil, but it was like that would have led me down a totally different trajectory. And it felt like I had done that before. And so it was comfortable on a lot of levels, and it was known, and it was challenging to walk away from that.
Oof. So listening to you, these two questions came to my mind, because a lot of people who are listening, they are going through the same situation. They are just living a life that they don't want to live. They are being offered to a life they are not sure they want to take that path. So how can we help people to feel, see, or know what's that inner guidance? Is there any way to make that?
You know what I think it is I think, I've guided a lot of people into this space, and it really starts with being willing to acknowledge that there is something else. And we do it all the time, but we do it in like little bitty pieces, and then we disregard it. And so I remember asking somebody one time, I'm like, haven't you heard the voice of God ever? And they got teary-eyed and they're like, oh yes. I was like, and how did that feel? And they're like home, And I said, so how is it that anything else is more real than that? And that's the biggest challenge, is that every single one of us has experienced or has touched the highest aspect of who we are, or divinity, or the universe. Somehow we've had some connection into that space. But because we're bombarded with information that's not that, it's very challenging to say, that is a version of reality. And in fact, in my estimation, it's the only version of reality. It's being willing to stare something in the face and deny its existence, which means that when you are sitting there and you've got the option to worry about finances or meditate or connect or pray or surrender, which do you choose? The finances are right there, like it's proof, right? You've got a bank account, or you've got a letter from the bank, or you've got a bill, or something is sitting right there in front of you. Can you look at that and say, I don't think you're the only version of reality. I think there's another one. And slowly and steadily, the more you're willing to entertain that dialogue, the more that expansive, loving kind of oneness feeling becomes your new normal. But you have to be diligent about choosing to invoke a new normal for yourself.
Whoa. Being willing to acknowledge there is something else. I don't think this is the only version of reality. And be diligent. I think that opens up a new perspective, and it opens up a new energy field that allows to come what we really want out of this existence. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have goosebumps right here, just like rewording those words. Tonya, and the other question I was thinking is, what did you do? And I think you already kind of answered this, but when you need to make this big decision, it doesn't matter how much money, how many time you spend, you just make the decision, this is not the life I want, and you start making a new decision. How do you deal with that emotion, that fear, that doubt that is going back and forth for you to start healing your life? Because when you make that decision is when the real healing happens.
Yeah, I think it's a complex answer, because in the work that I do in the superpower design and stuff, and help people really understand their predisposed superpowers and where their intuition comes in from, my intuition does not come to me through emotional energy. A lot of people's does. Mm-hmm. I'm fairly devoid of emotion. If I'm experiencing emotion, it's typically either through, I'm a true empath, so I experience it from outside of myself, or it's stuff that's been buried inside of me and is coming forward. Knowing that and understanding that about myself, I see very clearly why I'm able to make decisions very quickly, to the extent that I don't always understand why other people can't. Mm-hmm. But when you get your intuition through emotional energy, there's an additional step that has to occur. So essentially, I just have to be willing to change the story, and then I'm good to go. But for folks who are getting their intuition through emotional energy, they have to be willing to transmute and integrate that emotional energy. And it's super, super powerful work. I tend to do things a little bit quicker, but I don't do things as deeply as the folks who have that sort of intuition. And that's how they connect with the world. So I don't connect here very well with people. In fact, I try really hard not to. I typically just connect in at the abstract frequency with people. And that's where I choose to hold them and where I choose to engage with people. Those who carry that emotional energy intuition are doing different work than I do. It looks very similar, but they're really getting at the heart and the root of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so I say that because I think it's important to know about ourselves. If you don't know where your intuition is coming in from, then you don't really know what strategy to invoke. You're not going to, if you get your intuition through emotional energy, you're not going to be able to invoke the exact same strategies I did and use them with success. And it's just going to lead to further frustration. Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest issues I have with the personal development and spiritual growth arenas right now, is that all of us, there's like this trend to blindly follow in people who appear to be successful, but you don't, if you don't know kind of what's behind the scenes and what they're working with design wise and superpower wise and ability wise, then chances are very good you're trying to implement a strategy that isn't innate to you, and it's not going to work. And it may work temporarily for a moment because of belief, but over time you'll just get frustrated. And we have a lot of people who are very frustrated right now because they've spent a lot of money or a lot of time trying to do something the right way and never stopping to think, like, what's my way in this? And we're very complex beings. And so there's a lot of things that go into how each one of us navigates those types of decisions. So if you get your energy, your emotional energy through, or your intuitive energy through knowingness, then you can simply look at the story and change it. I mean, not simply, like, of course there's still work to be done, but the folks who get it through the emotional energy, you really have to know how to work with that. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to pretend that, oh, just do what I did. Like, I think that that's really doing a disservice to people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And before that, you talk about empowerment. So how do you guide people to empower themselves to start healing?
Well, a big part of the work that I do is just modeling it, showing people that there's something different. When I made the commitment to hold to embodying that abstract frequency and showing people that, you know, you can do things your way and not, I always use the word, not prostituting myself for anything or anyone, not dropping down into those lower frequencies, not engaging at that, not entertaining other people's lower frequency aspects, then I get to demonstrate, like, this is possible. I live it. So don't tell me it's not possible. And I think that's, people are starving for that example. And so I choose to do it. And I also choose to encourage others to do it so that they can empower others. And so there's this exponential impact by me uplifting other people. I've made it my life's work to encourage people like yourself and these amazing change agents who have these abilities, and to uplift them into the world so that they can go and touch the lives of millions of people. I can't do that on my own, but I can certainly do that by this ripple effect, this exponential impact of choosing to be the light and choosing to encourage other people to shine just as, or even brighter than I'm shining, and not being threatened by that, but feeling uplifted in that process.
Yes, and let me tell everybody, I am so blessed because I was working with Tonya through all my process, identifying how do I want to show up in the world. And I would say it's also a matter of saying yes or saying no without feeling guilty. That is a big part of all of this empowerment process. So Tonya, let me ask you to share with us 2 steps or tips for anyone to start their personal healing process.
Beautiful. I think on the very first one is be selfish. You know, you really can't do much for anybody else. And I know we've all heard this, but you can't do much for anybody else if you're not full. You know, if you don't have your own internal resources, if you're not carrying your own peace and joy within you, then you really are ineffective with other people. And so be willing to do that first and to put yourself first. I think that's challenging for a lot of folks. And then the second one is then be diligent with yourself and say, you know, am I choosing what I want? Is this leading me closer to what I want? And there's, you know, that doesn't mean that you don't kind of eat the ice cream, you know, occasionally if you want to be healthier. Like, I get it. Like, so there's some forgiveness that goes into this process as well. But let's be honest with ourselves. You know, if you're saying, I want to do this, a big part of the work that we do in the world comes from the fact that for the last 2 years, I've interviewed over 200 people, and all of them have told me that they've gotten the guidance to change the world. And it's like, great. What are you doing toward that end? You know, it's one thing to say you're here to change the world and you've got this download or God talked to you or whatever however your awakening happened for you. That's wonderful. But what are you doing with it? And if your day-to-day existence isn't in support of that mission, you're wrong. Change. Do something different. Or stop saying that you're here to change the world. Like figure out where the incongruity is and fix it. But don't lie to yourself about it. And so I think that that's a delicate balance because, again, we want to be loving and have forgiveness and gratitude for our journey. And I think most of us could do with a little more discipline in that area of just being willing to call ourselves out and say, oh, wow, this really doesn't serve me anymore. And choosing to start looking in a different direction.
Yes, and I would add something that I also learned when I was working with you and when I've been walking all of this path, it's that I need to start with myself. I can't change anything out there if my life is not changing, if I am not taking actions to change the way I am feeling, talking, thinking, if I am not really changing who I am. You asked something, and that I really, it's not you didn't ask it, but you told us to ask ourselves, is this leading me closer to where I want? And that the answer to that question should lead our emotions, our thinking, our actions, just to be more congruent to what we really want. I think that we need to start being the superheroes of our own lives before trying to do something else out there. Tonya, I think that we are just running out of time, and I'm so happy. I wish I can invite you again, and hopefully we can just have one of these interviews later on, because I have many questions for you. I would like to discuss many more topics with you, but I know people are wondering, how can I contact these women? So please remind us where they can find you out there in social media, wherever you feel is easier to contact you.
Beautiful. Of course, go to superpowerexperts.com. And again, on the homepage is a cool quiz that you can figure out one of your predisposed superpowers. You can also connect with me on just about all of the social media platforms looking for Tonya Dawn Recla or Superpower Experts.
Tonya, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, experience, strength, and magic with us. I've told you many times you are my favorite human witch. Thank you, all of you, for listening, for joining us. I am AngelaMaría, Conscious Creation. Change actions, shift energy to live heaven down here on earth. And I'll see you next time.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.